Hey, all right. More literary, turn of the century literary authors, female women authors, that is. So up next, Charlotte Perkins Gilman. And we will read two works of hers for class, actually. The Yellow Wallpaper, which is the short story she wrote. And then she wrote an explanation of why she wrote the Wallpaper, which is entitled Why I Wrote the Yellow Wallpaper. So, yeah, two works. If you look at the written out lecture, that's in the week 6 folder there, or yeah, it's in the folder, the turn of the century folder. If you look in there, you will find a picture of Charlotte Perkins Gilman. So that's kind of neat. Again, you can see how she looked, what she wore, how she held herself, although sometimes they're posed, right, by the photographer, so can't really guess that much. But the expression on her face is kind of neat to see too, I think. All right. The written out lecture also has websites that have more biographical and literary information on Charlotte Perkins Gilman and links to her personal papers. So if you want to read more of those or any of those, go for it. There is also a Charlotte Perkins Gilman Society website. So that's kind of neat. A whole society devoted exclusively to Charlotte Perkins Gilman. So that kind of shows you how revered she is, right? That there would be a whole society devoted to her. And you don't want to miss this one. This YouTube video that I've included in the lecture is a clever and creative overview of Gilman's life and an apt analysis of the Yellow Wallpaper. So if you're reading the Yellow Wallpaper and you're like, I'm a little stumped, you may want to check out that video. And then there are two YouTube videos that feature a two-part lecture on Charlotte Perkins Gilman, the Yellow Wallpaper and its symbols. So again, if you are finding that you need a little more help or direction, of course, I always provide my professor's notes after you fill out the discussion questions, and that gives you more information on decoding all of that. And not that there's like any one answer to symbols, but like it helps you kind of notice the symbols and maybe, apprehend different meanings they can have. But I don't want to give too many spoilers before you all have a chance to read the stories and think about them yourself and discuss them yourself on the forums. I mean, not yourself, but with each other on the forums, on the discussion question forum for this week. And then there's a YouTube film that actually dramatizes the Yellow Wallpaper. So the story of hers that we read is there's a dramatization of it, and that filmed version is on YouTube. So I've got a link to that. Although the one that's like just like a complete version of it, the sound and the picture quality aren't as good as the other YouTube links that I posted that like as a part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, part 6, part 7, part 8. So it's an 8-part link presentation of the 1989 PBS Masterpiece Theater dramatization of the Yellow Wallpaper. So it's the same film. It's just the version that has better sound and visual quality is posted in 8 segments. So you have to like click on one after the other, unless you have like a playlist that you can set up and then it'll just play one after the other. Anyway, you can look at either of them, both, whichever, neither, whatever you want. Go for it. Enjoy. Kind of fun sometimes to see dramatizations, but I would say definitely read the short story first, because you don't want to have your own apprehension spoiled by somebody else's dramatization, because they'll pick up on things that you don't. They might make changes and they'll ruin the suspense too. So definitely read the short story first, then watch it. You always say that whenever you get a film version of a book, read the book first so that you can make your own ideas about it and make your own connections and your own visual imageries of what you're reading. Then you can watch somebody else's. All right. And then there's a YouTube clip that's got a trailer for a new film version. of a speculative origin story of the writing of Charlotte Perkins Gilman's short story, The Yellow Wallpaper. And I've never seen these trailers come into the fruition of an actual movie, so I don't know if there's still going to be, I mean, if that's still on the table, that people are trying to make that or not, or if that was somebody's cool idea, but it just never came to be. Anyway, you can check those out if you want to. They're kind of creepy and fun to watch. Okay. As is the story, right? As you get into it, you'll see what I mean. All right, so Charlotte Perkins Gilman, she's an American, and she lived from 1860 till 1935 to about 75 years of age, so quite a long life, especially considered the length of lives that so many of our women authors have had thus far. She lived to 75, so long life. Charlotte was the second child of Mary Perkins, whose husband left Mary after Charlotte's birth because a doctor had said that another pregnancy could kill Mary. So the father left. He wanted another child, and rather than be married to a wife whose health would be threatened by another pregnancy, he left. Yeah, hard life for these women. Without much job opportunity in 19th century Hartford, Connecticut, Mary, the mother of Charlotte, struggled to support her family, and she moved them 19 times in only 18 years, even though Charlotte was the granddaughter of famed abolitionist preacher Henry Ward Beecher, who was the grandniece of Catherine Beecher and the brother of Harriet Beecher Stowe. So, or no, I'm sorry. She was the grandniece of both of them, Catherine Beecher and Harriet Beecher Stowe. So, yeah, I mean, that's not confusing. So, she's the granddaughter of Henry Ward Beecher, and Henry Ward Beecher is the brother of Catherine Beecher and the brother of Harriet Beecher. So, Catherine Beecher and Harriet Beecher, who became Harriet Beecher Stowe, that wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, they're sisters, and their brother is Henry Ward Beecher, and Charlotte is descended from Henry Ward Beecher. So she's Henry Ward Beecher's granddaughter, and she's the grandniece of both Catherine Beecher and Harriet Beecher Stowe. So she's got this very well-connected family, but they're still doing really, poorly because, as, it was a time, she was born when the Civil War was about to start. Hard times in New England, as we talked about with Mary E. Wilkins Freeman, hard times for their family too. And, if you're a mother of a single parent, basically, that's a female, that's a woman at this time, really hard to support yourself. Yeah, so her husband ran off and left them. So Charlotte's youth was further handicapped by her mother's refusal to show physical tenderness to her children because she did not want them to expect emotional fulfillment from life. So really kind of a sad upbringing. Like, I don't know, the mother obviously was in dire circumstances, and she was worried that her children would be crippled if they learned to expect emotional fulfillment from life. Maybe because the mother herself was going through such horrible times that, she's like, I don't want to raise my children on fairy tales and have them expect more from life than life may actually give them. So I'm going to raise them with that kind of tough love, harshness, so that they are toughened up and can confront harsh circumstances in case they have them the way I do. And they were having harsh circumstances, right? Because, yeah, their father left them. I'm sure that was incredibly painful and very difficult because it's very hard for women to support themselves, much less a single mother to support herself during that time period. It was hard even for, Mary E. Wilkins Freeman's family to support themselves. And they had a father and a mother during that time period, at least, of the Civil War. So it is no wonder then that Charlotte and her first husband, Charles Walter Stetson, had great difficulty merging marriage, work, and maternity. Charlotte gave birth to her daughter, Catherine, and suffered the postpartum depression that she details so hauntingly in her short story that we read for class this week, The Yellow Wallpaper, which was published in 1892. As is the woman in the story, Charlotte had been prescribed the rest cure by the physician S. Weir Mitchell, to which the story refers. So Charlotte herself, because of her postpartum depression, had been prescribed this rest cure, which her doctor, S. Weir Mitchell, had prescribed her. This treatment, the rest cure, nearly drove Charlotte crazy. So she divorced her husband and even sent her daughter to live with him and his new wife. Because remember, we were talking about at this time, you know, women, before this time, women couldn't divorce their husbands, and they couldn't, they weren't given custody of their children. But at this time, when Charlotte um, divorced her husband, she may have had a chance for custody, but she sent the daughter to live with her ex-husband and his new wife, while Charlotte lived in California and supported herself by lecturing, editing, writing, and teaching. And it may be because she was suffering such depression, may also be because she knew how hard it was as a single mother to support um, oneself. Obviously not having a child to take care of gave her the time, that room of one's own, that time that a woman needs to focus to be able to write and to be able to tour and lecture and teach and edit. Like, I don't know how difficult that would have been at the time. It's not as if it was easy to find childcare, right? And women with children, single mothers with children, had really bad social stigma then. It just wasn't done. It wasn't seen. You didn't find a lot of women in that situation. Well, Charlotte recovered from her postpartum depression and she eventually married George Houghton Gilman, or George Houghton Gilman. Not quite sure how that middle name is pronounced, but the last name is Gilman. That we know Charlotte Perkins Gilman. She got that last name from that husband. Um, so he supported her literary career, and feminism and suffragism. Suffragism meaning the right to vote for women, or for anybody, the right to vote. But in this case, the right to vote of women. Of note, Charlotte wrote Women and Economics, considered the Bible of the women's movement, and that's a direct quote from the anthology. In Women and Economics, she argued that women's subordinate role in history facilitated human evolution up to modern times, which now needed its complement in fully equal females contributing the feminine attribute of life, peace, and nurture, as opposed to masculine war, dominance, and aggression. So she saw how women having that subordinate role contribute to the development of society to that point. But she said, now we need something different. We need something to counter all that aggression and, dominance and war that led to the formation of society. Like much of society is driven by battles and people taking over each other's lands and resources and establishing strong men, kings or feudal lords to protect people, because so many, there was no rule of law. So in the absence of rule of law, people relied upon strong men to protect their themselves and their families, and so that's how we had modern day nation states arise, with kings, and monarchs to protect the people, and people would basically give up their own freedom, their liberty, and subject themselves to monarchs in exchange for protection and an ordered society. And she said, now that we have ordered societies, we need to do away with the aggression, war, and dominance that led to the formation of societies. And we need now the attributes that women can offer, life, peace, nurture, the more humanizing, civilizing elements that she associated with women. A proponent of euthanasia, however, Charlotte, sadly, after a 3-year battle with breast cancer, overdosed on chloroform to commit suicide in 1935. So she lived that long life to 75, but she cut it off herself because of her struggle with breast cancer. At the time, there just wasn't, there weren't the medical treatments. I mean, even now, breast cancer can always be a battle, but we did not have all the medical treatments that we do nowadays to try to fight it, and so she did take her life, sadly. However, our anthology points out that Charlotte said that she was not taking her life because of the pain of her disease, but because her career in the world was at an end. from the battle she was waging with cancer. So, kind of an interesting flip on suicide, but I guess she considered writing and her career that important that she couldn't go on without it. Enjoy reading Charlotte.